Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today, some day in September 2024. We've just finished a sesshin on Jizo Bodhisattva, and it's a pleasure to be here with Chozen Roshi. My name is Jomon. We'd like to share a little bit about the experience for those of you who did not get to be here this week. And there are a couple ways to do that. We will frame a little bit in about Jizo Bodhisattva, the qualities and the realms and whatever else that might come to mind, just to introduce Jizo a little bit. And then we would like to hear from the people who were in attendance at the retreat to really complete the story. Each person's experience is like a facet on a jewel, and it's important to hear from a lot of different angles. Every single person's mind is so different, every single heart, so please be generous with your sharing when that time comes. We also, at this retreat, part of the practice was creative practice, which was kind of a head fake for a lot of people, because you heard the word crafts and you said, oh, this will be an easy one, easy retreat. We did meditate quite a lot. It was a sesshin, and people really practiced quite deeply and earnestly. The creative practice was also a time of practice where people really were in just deep focus as a way to express the qualities of Jizo Bodhisattva. And I'll hold up a few examples in a moment. But we made travel altars with a little ceramic representation of Jizo inside. And we had fabric and Mod Podge and glitter and bejewels and flowers and moss. We had moss. People scoured the earth for sticks and grasses and added that. Jizo is a bodhisattva, a being, an archetype who could just merge into the whole universe, but instead decides, I'm going to stay here and help everyone else. So we are all also bodhisattvas. A bodhisattva is on the path to awakening, on the path to becoming a Buddha. And we all find ourselves in that role sometimes. We can also call upon the qualities of Jizo Bodhisattva in times of difficulty. Every single person here, it is the human condition, the human realm to experience impermanence, the relentless truth of impermanence, old age, sickness, and death. And every single person here has been touched in their life by those things. And we all together shared and worked with the way those experiences can show us the truth and the relief that that can be when we let go of the struggling against life as it is. So hopefully you'll hear something that is inspiring to you and helpful to you, and how to practice with Jizo. I'm going to turn it over to Chozen.
So people often ask, is Jizo a saint, like a saint? And I was part of a Christian Buddhist dialogue where we looked at the qualities of saints and the qualities of bodhisattvas. And of course, they're very similar. Saints often are framed on real people who lived, and then they have to go through a process and had made some miracles happen, and the Pope has to, and I guess there's maybe a committee that decides, are you a saint or not? But bodhisattvas are archetypes. They're not real people, although some people have been declared living Jizos. So there was a man named Gyogi Bosatsu in Japan, and when Buddhism first came into Japan, there were epidemics and all kinds of difficulties, and the emperor wanted to erect a huge statue of the Buddha to try to bring peace to the land and end all the difficulties, epidemics and famines and droughts and so on. And that became the great Buddha in Nara, which is amazing to see if you ever can go to Nara and see this gigantic Buddha. I saw recently that every few years they clean it, and they had people suspended from little platforms with big dust mops, dusting this gigantic Buddha, maybe three times the height of the ceiling. But they had trouble casting it in those days, something that big. And it was cast several times, and it kept fracturing. I think it was cast 6 times total. And Gyogi Bosatsu wanted everybody, not just wealthy people who could donate, to contribute to the making of this statue so they would feel it was theirs. So he went around the country collecting donations for people, including from very poor people, and sometimes women would give a bit of their jewelry to be melted in, or sometimes just like the equivalent of a penny. But he collected a significant amount of donations that way. So everyone felt this Buddha is ours, and we can go and talk to this Buddha, or pray to this Buddha, or be astonished by this Buddha. And then Gyogi Bosatsu, once he got started, began also building public works projects. So bridges over dangerous streams, roads, rest houses, all kinds of ways to benefit people in general, especially in those days when everybody had to travel by foot, or if they were wealthy, they could go by carriage. It was dangerous to travel and difficult to travel. And still you'll see statues in Japan of Jizo Bodhisattva wherever there are crossroads. It could be a crossing path in a rice paddy, or it could be crossroads on a road, not in busy highways much anymore, but in the old roads. And pilgrims would come along and offer a pebble to Jizo and pray for safety on their journey. And so there are often piles of pebbles around some of those statues. And that also led to safety on and aid on the spiritual path. So Jizo helps people on their physical path in life, so people who might encounter a lot of difficulty on their physical path in life, and also people on the spiritual path. Now, the spiritual path is not smooth and easy, otherwise we'd all be enlightened. We wouldn't even be here, right? Just like go to a couple of retreats. I mean, we kind of had that belief when we were first practicing. We thought, okay, we'll practice really hard, we'll have a big Kensho opening, and then that'll be it. Then all our problems will be solved. And we'll be great calligraphers, and we'll be wonderful musicians, and we can write haiku poetry, and everything will be fine. But that's not the way it works. As one of my friends said, we were hoping, and she's a friend from the early days, when we just jumped off the diving board into practice and didn't even look to see if there was water there or a life preserver anywhere. And she said, we wanted to take the deep dive and bypass all the psychological debris. So in a human life, we accumulate psychological debris. It's inevitable. That's the first noble truth, that to live as a human being is to experience suffering. And sometimes some of that suffering gets sticky with the circumstances under which it happened, and the reactivity we have to people who look like the person who was bullied us when we were in second grade or whatever. So there's a lot of junk in there. And as life goes on, we tend to put that debris into a big garbage bag and carry it around with it, drag that bag around with us. And what's the wonderful thing about practice is you can begin to empty that bag. So you don't have to tote it around. You don't have to be that person that the garbage says you are, or that person who resents the person who gave you garbage. So little by little, you can unpack that bag and just let it go. Let it go, and even be grateful for it, because that's what led you to this path. That's what led you to this path. And that's so beautiful then. Then everything is transformed into the path. So the qualities of Jizo Bodhisattva are great benevolence, is one of them. And when we do our Kashiti ceremony, we say, Bodhisattva of great benevolence, to welcome everything that comes towards us with a warm and undefended heart. Now, I'm not saying that's easy, but once we realize that everything that comes forward is grist for the mill on the path, then we change our attitude towards difficulties that arise. Oh, what can I learn from this? Or what can I drop from this? So great benevolence applies to us to be kind to ourselves as we're on the path, because there are times in the path necessarily that are difficult. That's what makes us strong. That's what makes us resilient. That's what makes us creative as we proceed along the path. So to be benevolent towards all the beings inside of us, all of our various ages, infancy, toddler, adolescent, college student, whatever, all of those are in there, and each of them has their own difficulties, their own suffering. And so sometimes we have to work with the young ones in there on purpose and invite them into practicing with us. Literally, invite them into practice with us. And then, of course, once we can be benevolent towards ourselves, selves, we can be benevolent towards other people because we understand much more about what they're going through. And even if we don't understand, even if we meet them for the first time, we know, okay, there's a depth of being in there. And it may take years to find out who that person really is, and I have patience. And I would like to be present for their opening, if that would be helpful, for their opening up of their suffering, and then their path that results from that suffering. Then Jizo is the Bodhisattva of great determination, and it takes determination to follow this path. It takes determination. It's not 2 openings and you're done. It's a lifetime, it's actually lifetimes of practice. And probably we're here not because of just what happened in this current lifetime, but in our parents' lifetime, in our grandparents' lifetime. So you can take it literally back, because we now know about epigenetic factors that can carry difficult things forward, or reactivity or habit patterns forward. We could call that past lives, my past lives, or we could frame it as, yes, I have had past lives. And each of us has something in our life that's peculiar to us, that isn't something we learned about from our family, but it's something that's really unique and can't be explained. Where did that come from? Why? In my case, it's why do I love medieval music and Renaissance music? I was not exposed to that at all in my childhood, and the first time I heard it, I thought, that's my music. So each of us has something like that, some little hint that there was something from the past that came forward and infected us, sometimes for good, sometimes for difficult. So great determination, the same friend who talked about, she's a teacher, Roshi, who talked about we wanted to do the deep dive and bypass all the psychological debris. She's just written a book about long maturation. Long maturation. This is a lifetime practice. And one of the reasons I love people in recovery is they know three things about practice. Is one, the problem is not out there, it's here. And this is where the work has to be done. Two, they know you have to keep showing up. So you come to Sesshin, you come to little retreats, you sit daily, you listen to Dharma talks, you listen to podcasts, you keep showing up to, I want to be free. And then three, they know it's a lifetime practice, people who are in recovery. And that's true of this practice. So that people in recovery come already kind of equipped with some three basic truths about this practice. And with great determination to recover from whatever we're addicted to, including our personal self, our little lonely, fallible, imperfect self, and we practice.
Another quality of Jizo Bodhisattva is fearlessness. And I like to call that courage, because it's okay to feel fear, I think, or it's inevitable to feel fear, isn't it?
Keeps us alive.
It keeps us alive. It's handy that way. Sure is. And when it's not useful, maybe the difference that I want to point to is the difference between fear and worry. Fear being that useful adrenaline jolt in the presence of an actual danger. You know, a car swerves into your lane. The body responds to something that's happening. How wonderful. Worry is when our mind generates something that might happen in the future that is terrible and imagines it probably in vivid detail. Our body responds just the same way to something that's not happening. And the feelings and emotions and sensations that the body generates are real, but they are not true. And it becomes really difficult to distinguish the difference sometimes, because this is a physical experience in the present moment, and yet is it something that's happening right now? So in many ways, courage requires making that distinction, and that requires looking and a willingness to turn the mind in, to really look within, to see, how am I the architect of my own anxiety? Also, those are sometimes very deep habits, or habits that have been acquired quite honestly. And so those can and should be honored for that. And if they have outlived their usefulness, then it may be time to re-examine them and see how they might be dissolved and transformed. Something else that comes forward when I think of courage and fearlessness, anymore it's fairly common to associate courage and vulnerability, thanks to social worker Brene Brown, who has made that connection, that when we feel vulnerable, like a child is vulnerable, we look over at Hart over there and see how vulnerable he is and how much we want to protect him. And children are vulnerable, and they need our help and protection. We too, as adults walking around very officially in the world, are also vulnerable. And even though we may not want to admit that or come to terms with that, when we do, that is what enables us to be in connection with other people. Otherwise, it's like floating a little duck decoy of yourself for other people to interact with. that might look pretty cool and fool a few people, but it is not satisfying to not really allow yourself to connect to other people. And guess what? That takes courage. People really showed that here. This is an opportunity to practice that. And I think another very beautiful childlike quality is optimism. And it's not so much about, I believe that the conditions will change in such a way that I will then agree with them. I mean, maybe that will. And that's the part about optimism that's the not knowing. One of the most optimistic people I know is sitting right over there is Bansho. He is my husband, and he really does demonstrate unflagging optimism. I'm going to just use a mundane example. Jikai and I were talking about the Dallas airport, because that's a stop from Puerto Rico to here, and it requires you to run, apparently. That was certainly our experience. My mind had completely closed around this idea that there was no time, there was no way we were going to make our connection, not a chance. And Bansho said, "No, let's try." Let's go for it. It's like, this is so stupid. We're going to run for no reason. And you know how you do. Sure enough, we made it. Wrong again. And that not knowing and willingness to just, let's go, let's try, let's see what happens. It is a very sweet characteristic, good to cultivate, helpful to have a friend.
So we now, we try to do this when we've had a retreat and we've come to the end of a retreat, especially for the people who weren't in the retreat, to share a little bit about what happened in the retreat. So if you would share, answering these two questions: why did you come to this retreat? And what did you learn or unlearn during this retreat? Those are the basic questions. Anybody willing to volunteer? We'll have a microphone brought to you. I love to hear Hart practicing the skill of
It's like somebody's gurgling Om in back of here. I came because many, many years ago, I was invited to help with a fundraiser for Great Vow, and Sylvia Borstein was our speaker. And at the end of the evening, while we were in a closet counting money, the gathered were chanting the Jizo Shingon. And it felt as if we were surrounded by benevolence, tenderness, wisdom, and skillfulness. And at that dinner, we were all given small gifts of Jizo, not any that looked like the Jizos now. They were flat little triangles. And those triangles, that triangle traveled with me for years to Indonesia, where my work took me, and it would always be the first thing on my altar. And to this day, I carry Jizos with me. And it is why I've come back to practice. I've been absent for quite a while. My daughter died 2 years and 5 months ago, and everything stopped. The world just stopped, except for Jizo. And Jizo carries her remains, and Jizo is with me all the time. And what I know about this retreat now, in a way I've never really known it, you can't do this alone. And I have felt utterly and completely alone the last 2 years and 5 months. And you all have shown me it takes a community to do this work.
That's the Sangha treasure. Thank you. Anybody else? Why you came, what you learned and or unlearned?
My name's Annalise. I was here a year and 9 months ago, and I've been looking at the website probably at least once a week since then, and wanting to do this, and thought, all that sitting, I don't know about that for Sesshin, right? And but last time I was here, I learned that I liked cleaning, and the job that I had was actually cleaning the bathrooms, and I liked it because I just brought all of my effort and I guess what you would call loving hands, and I just felt, even though nobody was probably going to notice because I just cleaned it yesterday and it looked clean, but it was like I liked just bringing myself to that. And as I've been here, I realized all that sitting, I struggled with it all week. I told Jomon, I hate it. Why is there anything else I can do to learn? I don't like sitting still. And so much of the things in my life, sometimes they hurt or they're uncomfortable, or I resist because it's something I have to do. And I feel like I don't have a choice. And those things are all okay, but the negative thinking about it and the resistance itself is what's really painful. And today in Zazen, it's it's just been teaching me all week about all those things in my life that I bring resistance and negativity to, when it could be like cleaning a toilet. I could just I could really love it and and bring myself fully to it, rather than sit in all this why do I have to do this? And so apparently I like meditation too. Wow.
Oh, really? What a discovery.
This is good stuff. So this has been a really, wow. Both times I've been here, I've just been so painful all week. And by the last day has been my heart feels full. And I love everybody here. And wow, it's just really, I'm just blessed to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for creating this place.
Thank you. That's exactly what practice is about, is discovering what's blocking us from joy. And, the tears of joy that you're shedding right now. And there's a part of us that's afraid of that. It's very interesting and resists it. It's no, we're not going to go there. But you did. You stayed long enough to go through it. That's wonderful. Years ago, this is way before we had this monastery, I made up a song to the theme tune for Chiquita Banana, and it was resistance, resistance, my resistance feels good, don't take away my resistance, and so had several verses. Maybe did you raise your hand?
Each night when we were chanting this beautiful lament of the Jizo Shingon, the part where you don't finish the chant and you slowly go lower, it goes Om Ka Ka Kabisa Ma E. I had this imagery of Jizo descending into the hell realms, just as each verse you just go a little lower and a little lower, and it's not quite finished. You don't quite get there, so you just keep descending. And as it's been turning into autumn here, I just think about that, about the descent. And there's something just really beautiful in bringing that energy into the song of just like a quiet, a humble lament into the hell realms. And it's really beautiful. Like that melody helped me connect with Jizo in a way that I hadn't before. Thank you.
So I came here, I was here in June 2023 and felt had a really powerful experience here and felt very cared for and nourished in my practice by you, Chozen, and this environment. And so I was desperate to come back and didn't get to come back last year. And I was like, I'm coming no matter what to this retreat. So that kind of determination was part of why I came. And I was reflecting, I wasn't even sort of like, okay, it's Jizo, I don't care what we're doing, I'm just coming. You know? That we got to do crafting was a big bonus. So two things in my life that have been really constant and that I've had to come and learn are really reliable things are the Dharma, but also creativity and some kind of creative practice were always things that I turned to as a child and in distress and different times in my life. So it was a great combination of things for me. And even seeing the, and how I really connected with Jizo was some discursive thoughts that were coming up. You know, I really realized that Jizo is about facing the self, the story, at least for me, in this retreat. And I need that staff, and I need to go like this and shake it every once in a while, or I need it sometimes just to be gentle with my thoughts and kind of sweep them. That was another image that came up for me, is just sweeping my thoughts. But definitely the staff and the fearlessness and turning toward these things don't have as much power. That is the transformation that I experienced and learned. So, thank you.
Guys, we've had ladies' chair.
I came to deepen my practice, and it didn't matter that it was Jizo or anything else. I just wanted to be here and deepen my practice. I was a little confronted by the arts and crafts thing. In fact, I found myself not listening very well to the instructions, and the glaze on my Jizo did not turn out the way I had hoped it would. And when I looked at him, I went, oh, well, he's a forest Jizo. And one of our instructions would let Jizo tell you what to do next. And so I picked this lovely green background and put it behind him, and then put the Mod Podge over it. And when it dried, it looked so dull and so uninteresting. I went, well, what now? And the fellow next to me had brought in half of the forest. All kinds of little bits and pieces were just flowing all over. And there were some flowers from the fir trees. I think that's what they were. And I went, oh, well, maybe I could put one of those here and one there and one there. And I put them just so and went, oh, well, that's better. Thank you. And then it still kind of needed something. And I had just cut out the piece for the lid of the box. And there was the leftover piece. Well, let me back up. In the middle of this, I found myself so tight and so worried. And I could just feel it. I said, oh, this is a very familiar feeling. And then I remembered age 6 or 7 wrapping a present for my mom, and it just wasn't going well, and I got so upset, and I said, Daddy, would you help me? And he was really impatient, and he did it anyway, and he kind of made a mess of it, and I might have to forgive him for that one of these days. But confronting that and somehow broke loose something in me, I think, because the leftovers from the lid, I took them and went, oh, look, it could go just around the top and down the sides a little bit. Oh, and isn't that lovely? I can just glue it just like that. And the perfectionist in me got to go on holiday and go, isn't that lovely? Thank you.
Well, I came just because I was taken by Jizo last year at the Jizo ceremony out in the Jizo garden. It was beautiful. What I learned was how much I missed my wife this week, who was home taking care of a very sick sister. And it was difficult to think about her there by herself doing that. We've been such long-term partners. I also learned that I like vacuuming. I vacuum the entire monastery every day. And my wife will be very happy to. Thank you.
Wholehearted effort is really one of the keys here, that here we have an opportunity to do everything wholeheartedly, and the joy and energy that's released from that is quite lovely, as you've heard. So you have an opportunity to chant wholeheartedly with us. We have this new Jizo chant that Mimi had mentioned, and we'd like to do that now.